are other platforms that I regularly go into. One is called Engage. It's another really cool one. It's only you can get to it from PC or headset. It does require an account, which you can get for free, but it's really dynamic. I'll put a link to it here in the chat. And that's also another platform that XR Women, in fact, I will share that XR Women. Oh, I actually can't. That's right. Well, I will share the Engage platform so that people can see and read about that. It's a pretty dynamic platform. Just has a little bit more it's not what they call a browser-based platform, meaning you can't access it by just clicking a browser, which is why in Frame, it has been such a game changer for a lot of people. However, it has amazing set of augmented virtual reality capabilities, AI, a bunch of things in there, and it's really fun to go into the platforms and have experiences. We have one in XR Women where we land on the moon and we are all dressed in spacesuits, and we walk into this, looks like a huge space pod, and then we have our huge event space there, which is very cool. So it's really a whole new world once you start to visit some of these platforms. You realize it's a whole ecosystem already out there. And one of the things I've done in my professional networking, which I do a lot of, is I'll suggest, hey, let's meet over in my Frame world instead. Let's not do Zoom. Let's just go on to Frame. And it's so simple. You can just click the link and they can go in as a guest. And there's pretty much, you can do everything that you can do in a Google Meets or a Zoom call, if not more. So it's pretty fun. Yeah. All right, I'll stop talking.
Hey, Caroline.
Yes.
Hey, Matt's about to jump in to do an announcement, FYI.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, so this is a 5-minute warning. The reason I'm giving everybody a 5-minute warning, including in the virtual room, for those of you who have not been aware of this yet, this event takes place live in person here at 1871. It's also taking place at the same time in a virtual space called FRAMEvr. We would love for you guys to actually try to go enter the virtual space in FRAMEvr. But the reason I'm making this announcement right now is because of the third place that we take care of the event, which is on the live stream that Tom is starting right now. And so ultimately, we're here to test the audio going to the stream, make sure everything is working. Caroline, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
All right, so I'm going to put you up on the screen so that the folks in the room here can see you. So again, for those of you who haven't seen this yet, if you look up on the TV screens here behind me, that's our virtual venue. It's taking place at the same time. We will have a host and a presenter from there as well. And Tom, I just wanted to check how are we doing on the stream. Everything looks good? All right, so for those of you who are standing at demonstration tables, please finish up your demonstrations at this point and start making your way to the seats. Grab a drink, grab a snack, because we're going to get started in about 3 minutes. Presenters, please come and see Tom. See me by Tom at the table. Thank you.
And come back to Frame.
Caroline, I'm going to mute you in the room for another 2 minutes. I'll be back in 2 minutes.
Sounds good.
You're muted, Caroline.
I said lots of lead in. And for those of you who are here, it is no shortage of dedication and passion that Kume is here from Ethiopia, and it is a whopping 2:15 there. Is that right? 2:15?
Yeah, 2:15 a.m.
Sorry. So
okay.
we have to be understanding and also very appreciative that she is here with us to share her journey in the agriculture, food production world. And so, yeah, just again, thank you so much, Kume, for being here.
No problem.
And
Pleasure.
Kume and I met, 2 years ago, I think it's now been, and have
Yes.
had various different intersections through our involvement with Web3, which the combination of decentralized economies and blockchain and cryptocurrencies. So she's one of those inspiring leaders, and we're excited to hear her story tonight. And I think, Kume, that not last time, but several times ago, you were not yet in Ethiopia full time because you were in the UK.
Yes.
How long ago was that?
That was 2020/2021.
Okay.
I fully moved here in 2021.
Okay. So we must have met each other in 2021.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Correct. Right.
Absolutely. Well, and for those of you listening, this happens every first Wednesday of the month, and it's been one of the longest.
Hey, Caroline, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
There we go. We're about to get started here. Wow,
Terrific.
people make their seats really fast. I love it when that happens. Okay. So in case you can't tell, this is a very informal event. We like to keep it that way so it's light and easy and fun. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next evolution. And I need to get control of my slide deck. There we go. Tonight we are here to discuss agricultural, food, and natural resources and an industry, and specifically how immersive technology is affecting that industry. For those of you who I haven't met yet, hello, my name is Matt Wren. I am the founder of FRAMEvr Chicago and the Next Evolution, which was started right here at 1871 back in 2017. My passion and expertise, frankly, crosses a whole lot of emerging technologies, specifically virtual reality and augmented reality, but that's all I'm going to say about myself. If you'd like to know more about me, come up and meet me, send me an email for those of you in the virtual space. Happy to talk to you. Did my slides go away? My slides did go away. I apologize. Whoa. Give me a moment, please.
This is what it's like when you are building the airplane while you fly it. But that's how things are.
Gotta love when you do it on the fly.
That's right.
Okay, that's a virtual screen. Tom, I really hope I didn't just mess up all your sizing.
Share screen as well.
I will, just let me get it there. Come on.
And actually deploying this kind of event in this way is no small task.
Yeah, please. I'm going to share my screen there, and that way we'll get the slides up.
Would you like to share your deck on my side? Can you do that? Would that be easier?
I can do that very quickly, actually. Yes, let's do that.
Okay.
While Tom is creating a new screen for me, because I messed up all of his shots by deleting the screen that was there. Again, this is the joy of live events in multiple locations at the same time. All right, back to where I was. So as I was saying, hopefully you guys are all in the right spot. The Next Evolution AWE Nite Chicago event series is now and always has been and always will be 100% free to attend. That said, it is not free to produce. So please consider donating to keep this programming possible. For those of you who know that we've been doing kind of the digital raffle ticket with the NFTs, we've been having some problems with the system, so there is no NFT for this evening's event. That said, we're basically using your registration. So if you registered for the event and you have a ticket, you're automatically entered for the giveaway that will take place at the end of the year. Again, normally that's a VR headset, but we don't know which one until the end of the year because, hey, Meta just announced 3 new headsets. So, but with that said, again, we would appreciate any support you can give us. We will be doing a raffle at the end of the year. The other thing I'll mention is that the Next Evolution is also AWE Nite Chicago, Augmented World Expo. There are more than 30 AWE Nights that take place all over the world. If you are able to actually attend an AWE event, we'd say consider doing it. We have a discount code for anybody who wants to attend an AWE event. There's one coming up at the end of the month in Europe, in Vienna. Are you going? You are going. Excellent. But there are basically a couple of AWE Nite events that are AWE major conferences that take place around the world, and we would definitely recommend attending them. Also, you can attend live online courses by the XR community for the XR community and beyond at AWE Academy. They currently, I believe, have a fundraising prep course for XR startups and a WebAR course that are available on demand, and you can find out more about that at awexr.com. With that, we would like to thank our venue sponsor. Come on up here. Show of hands, how many of you have never been to 1871 before? All right, come on. So I didn't do the presentation with you. You want to be standing by the blue X, and the virtual cameras are right there. But go ahead.
Hey, I'm Olivia Thompson. I'm the events manager at 1871. Welcome to the people whose first time it is here today. 1871, we're an incubator and we're also an innovation lab. What's unique about us is that we support the full maturity curve for startups, whether it's an idea for a business, all the way to growth and corporate stage companies. We do this through membership. We have a lot of free events, programming, and we also have some really great resources to check out. We have free events all the time, so check us out on our website, 1871.com. We always are posting. I've heard that today we have two of our great food tech founders in the room, Peel On and Attribute Analytics. So if you haven't talked to them already, please check out their booths. They've got some really cool stuff going on. So thank you so much for being here. Yeah.
Thank you. And we do have to actually thank our other venue sponsors. So the event this month and in December are taking place here at 1871. Our November event next month will be taking place at 2112. 2112 Chicago's Creative Technologies Incubator. That's up by Fort Knox Studio, Montrose Avenue, and Knox or 94, right by there. So we hope to see you there next month. But with that, I will hand it over to Caroline to introduce herself and our virtual space. Caroline, you there?
I am here in my full, almost Halloween garb. So hope you all like my costume. I'm Caroline Dennis. I have a practice called 2 Degrees, where I help companies and organizations grow through a multitude of different kinds of adjacent technologies, networking, connecting. I'm really passionate about data sovereignty and data preserving technologies, health equity, and I really work in a lot of different communities. One of those I'm very involved in is VRAR Chicago, obviously, as well as XR Women, which I'll share a little bit about that. And then I'm also involved in a sustainable smart city program and project through IEEE. So I would like to share a little bit more about XR Women. So very excited. Today was actually our 189th event. Now, that's a lot of events over the course of 3 years. XR Women is a community of over 1,000 women from almost 60 countries, and we gather every week in Frame. Actually, we have a museum and a gallery, as well as many other platforms, and we are dedicated to both engaging and inspiring, supporting women in the immersive technology and spatial web industry. So if you have any interest in this, or any of you out there would like to go to one of our events, feel free to ping me on LinkedIn. But we're really happy that they are a partner and ally for us here at VRAR Chicago. I wanted to just give you a little bit of understanding of right here. We are going to have virtual panelists as well as those in person in Chicago, which is what makes this event so special. And we use this platform, which is a WebXR platform. And that means that you can enter your environment on your laptop, on your phone, or on a headset. So back to you, Matt. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Caroline. We also have a lot of great community partners that I do have to shout out because they support these events and they make them possible. So we have Vanity, who is our NFT provider, 2 Degrees, as Caroline just mentioned, the Independent Game Developers Association of Chicago, Envision, and Patched Reality. They help us, basically organize these events and keep them running. And we, of course, also want to thank our beverage sponsors who provide the lovely beverages, Revolution Brewing and System, who has the seltzer. I will point out, if you guys haven't figured this out already, System has 3 levels of alcohol in it. So there's 0%, 5%, and 8%. So if you're grabbing a System can, please pay attention to what you're grabbing.
I really
Now
want
we
to
tell you,
try
right?
it, and I wish that I were in person.
But with that, I also do want to thank, again, as 1871 called out, we have some presenters here from their food innovation cohorts. So I want to thank, I'm going to say it wrong, Tariq Ramji. I got it right? Close enough? Okay. He's the co-founder and CEO of Pelon, a company revolutionizing food packaging through innovative biodegradable solutions. He'll be demonstrating the Pelon groundbreaking packaging technology designed to preserve fresh produce while reducing environmental impact. If you haven't seen him yet, please check him out again after the event. Or after the stage portion of the presentation, because we will have networking and demonstrations again afterwards. Also here is Beth Kimmerly. Beth, wave. Where'd she is? There she is. She's the founder and CEO of Attribute Analytics, a food and beverage expert specializing in food and beverage sensory evaluation, innovation, and product development for the CPG industry. I also want to call out a couple other demonstrations that we have here. Andrew from CNH has been demonstrating over at the side. He'll be on the stage with us tonight. And he's got a few VR and AR experiences of the different vehicles and machines that CNH designs and produces, where you can view, operate, and assemble the machines. Mimbus has been here giving demonstrations. I actually don't know what you guys are demonstrating, but you can talk about it. That's okay. And we've had the headset tonight for the first time. We actually had the headset. How many of you, show of hands, actually went into the virtual version of the Frame environment and talked to Caroline before the show? Several of you. Excellent. But we do have that demonstration as well. And I just realized I forgot to change the slide. But with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Caroline to introduce our topic for the evening.
Thank you so much, Matt. This is going to be an interesting conversation tonight. Immersive technology is being adopted in a number of new and innovative ways, transforming the agriculture, food, and natural resources industries by producing data visualization, tools for education and training, interactive simulations, and more in all of those industries. Virtual reality simulations help farmers visualize crop varieties in their fields, helping them make informed decisions about planting strategies. Additionally, immersive technologies simulations give workers in agriculture and food hands-on experience in operating equipment and performing tasks like poultry cutting or food safety inspections, reducing error and boosting efficiency. Kume is also one of our guests tonight, and she's going to be talking about how she is helping the farming economy and how farmers are able to get paid and have their crops and allow them to sell to other parts of the world. So there's just a whole bunch of different things that we're going to be talking about tonight, and there are a lot of opportunities for learning. So thanks so much. Back to you, Matt.
All right. And with that, I'm going to bring up our first presenter, and that is Laurent Didalto. Laurent Didalto has over 20 years of experience in the field of XR for vocational training. They were one of the first companies to work in the agri-food trades field and have created software for production line maintenance, poultry cutting, and food safety inspection. And with that, take it away. Yeah, flip that up.
Thanks a lot. Oh, it's coming up. Good evening, everybody. Good night to Kume. Indeed, I'm spending my life half in France. You can hear with my accent, I'm not from here, I'm French, and half here. I just started my shift today, so that's why I'm still aligned with Kume time. It's 1 a.m. for me. But I'm happy to be with you today. So I am the founder of a company called Nimbus. We are working since 2018 in creating XR content for skilled trades. We started with welding, painting, woodworking, so mostly industry. Then we go to construction, and anywhere you need to have a workforce with skilled people, hands-on skills and all that things. And more recently, we started to work on the food industry, which is a big deal, but there's not that much application, not that much solution in XR for education and training in the food area. So I will show you today quickly 3 use cases to clearly identify what I mean behind these kind of things. So the first one is sharpening knife. That looks weird, but sharpening a knife is it's a high skill, quite complicated. I don't know if you sharpen your knife at home, but we used to have a knife now, and when it doesn't cut properly, you're just throwing it away and buy another one. But in the industry, they're cutting chicken, beef, whatever, manually, and the food, the knife has to be sharpened very regularly, like every 15 minutes, quite regularly. If you're not doing that, you will get hurt because it will be more complicated to cut. The food will not be cut properly. So it's really a skill that needs to be practiced. And we created, as you see, we created something that is really a solution to skill in a way that is very precise with the angle, with the motion you have to do. And you can see that it's aligned with real tools, so you can feel the pain and the issue of really sharpening in a proper way the knife. It saves time. Today we use it a lot. It's widely displayed and used in Europe, some places in the US and in Asia. And it saves the production and the time. Next example is poultry cutting, food processing again, but now we're cutting with a knife you sharpen. You can cut chicken, you can cut beef, whatever, and that's a skills too. In the food processing, they're cutting as fast as possible, but the shape of the animal keeps on changing. So you need to adapt the way you're cutting the chicken, the beef, whatever. So here it's a pure VR content. You can try it on our website, on our booth there, and it's just the headset and the joystick, and you need to understand how to process the animal and cut in a proper way. This is widely used today in school, high school, technical school, whatever. And the last example I wanted to show you is quite essential. It looks basic, but it's about food safety. What I mean by food safety, and actually this case is today deployed in Lebanon, because in Lebanon, you know, it's a country at war today, and they don't have electricity, basically. They have just generators. And they still have restaurant. They still have food to process. They still have freezer to maintain the food frozen. And processing the food in a proper way, so being able to check if it has not been defrosted several times, if it is safe, if the date is still good and all that things, is essential to avoid disease that can spread among the population. So on top of the war, you have disease created by the food problem. So we are actually deploying this solution to avoid this kind of issue. In this VR experience that you will be able to try, actually there, Peter and I will show you on the latest version of the Pico. Peter is over there, yes, by side. We have the latest version of the Pico 4 Ultra. So if you never tried it, because it's very recent release, you can try it on our booth there. You will be able to try that and see how it feels to walk around in a place that looks like a restaurant and a cooking place. So it's generic places, but try to identify what is a risk, what is a danger, if the food is safe or not. So it's a big deal, actually deployed in several places in Europe. So that's mainly, the last one, sorry. The last one is food processing for the industry. I forgot this one because it's one of the first we did, but it's production line control. You have to process liquids like milk, whatever you want, and you have big machinery filling the bottles and all that things. You need to control this system. So that's also another product we have. It's hands-on things because everything is automated. But when something is not correct, when you need to set up the production line and process and adapt the setting of the machine to process the liquid in a proper way, that is really precise work you need to do as fast as possible. So doing that, repeating that as much as you can, and tracking this kind of information, that's a key. Tracking this information to evaluate the skills of each people is really essential, and that's what's really helped to integrate XR into education. Thanks a lot. I hope I was in time. Thank you.
Thank you, Laurent. Okay, and with that, I'm going to hand it over to Caroline. So a couple things that I'll bring up that I didn't bring up at the very beginning. Number one, these presentations will be available on the website pretty much forever. So if you're like worried about taking pictures of slides and stuff like that, you can go to VRAR Chicago, go to the listing for this event. There will be a link to the slide deck. So you'll have that accessible from now on. But with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Caroline for our next presenter.
Excellent, Matt. Thank you so much. I'd like to invite Kume Chipsa up to the stage here. And you can either stand right up next to me, or you can go up on the stage and turn around. And sometimes it takes a few minutes here. And if you don't mind, Honeycomb Hydro, if you don't mind just going and sitting in the audience. And if you don't know how to do that, you can use there you go. Excellent. Welcome to our program. Okay, so while Kume is getting herself situated, and Kume, if you'd like to go ahead and share your webcam, that would be great so that we can see you all the way from Ethiopia. So we just realized I've known Kume for about 3 years. Yay, this is Kume. Welcome, everyone. And so happy that you're here, even though it's very late. So her background is really fascinating, and we met through the Web3 ecosystem. She is an astute leader with global experience across 4 continents, with over 15 years of track record and significant achievements in IT transformation across air travel and governance, government security sections, as well as social impact, entrepreneurship initiatives. Kume is the CEO and founder of AfroValley, which we will hear about tonight, a tech-based agro cross-border commodity marketplace and logistics platform, connecting farmers with wholesalers and retailers, assuring quality and quantity to the buyer, as well as a greater return for farmers. So welcome to the stage. Welcome to VRAR Chicago, Kume. And if you want to turn yourself just so that you can see your the screen, and get started, and I'll go sit down.
Thank you very much. Do you guys have my slides up, or should I?
Yes, and you can turn your avatar. There you go. If you can walk into the middle of the stage, that way others can see you as well. There you go.
Perfect.
Yes. Yes. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. My name is Kume. I'm right now in Ethiopia. It's 2 a.m. So I apologize if I'm half asleep and if I'm half talking, but I'll do my best to quickly walk you through what I do. And if there is any question, I'm happy to take the questions. As Caroline said, prior to coming to Ethiopia in 2021, I've worked across multiple countries, serving in the IT space and mainly in the aviation sector, bringing different technologies to transform the sector. The aviation sector is a bit a closed sector and very traditional, but through that, there's a lot of work that we've done to ensure people fly safely, and then also people get an appropriate fee structure so that it can be liberalized for everyone to fly in. When I came to Ethiopia, basically I brought in the concept of transformation and change to bring social transformation, because my previous history is more working in developed nations, but coming here, still technology aspect, it's very backwards. So, and then even if it's my background was in aviation, agriculture is predominantly the main economy in Ethiopia. So basically, my experience helped me to, even if it's a different sector, to immerse it into the agro space and explore ways to bring social changes. Can you go to the next slide? Okay, perfect. So I talked about myself, and the title of my project is about the story of the farmers and how we can bring changes from farm to cup. And I talked about myself, so probably on the next stage, on the next slide, Tom. Okay, so I guess in today's subject, even if mainly what we're working on is on a marketplace platform, it's basically the type of technologies that we use in immersive space and how that is actually supporting farmers to bring to get a better income. So I'll touch briefly about the type of technologies that we're using to basically integrate VR and AR in our marketplace. So if you go to the next slide. Okay, so let me touch a little bit about the challenges that the sector faces. So when we talk about the sector, 80% of the population is basically involved in the agro space. So we're talking about the entire nation, which is basically being impacted with the common challenges, which is basically getting a lower income because what we work on is on coffee. And if you look at coffee, Starbucks, an average cup of coffee is about $8, but if you compare how much the farmer earns is really unmatchable. The farmer average earns per kilogram around 1 kg, while the likes of Starbucks actually capture more than $8 to $16 an average from a profit of a kg coffee. So the idea is basically how do we bring in a shift, first of all, a know-how of the challenges, and then also a shift of income from the middlemans and towards to the farmer. This basically requires education and awareness, and number two, also a way to educate the farmers to produce quality goods so that they can earn better, and then also facilitate the supply chain as well. The supply chain actually consists of logistics and way to measure quality as well and produce quality goods. So across the supply chain, we assist the farmers using technology to bring in efficiency, and an efficiency means better income. So there are three challenges that we're looking at: quality, price, and logistics. And in those three spaces, basically by solving through technology, we bring in a better income to the farmers so that the farmers can be well equipped to support themselves and then ultimately their communities. If you go to the next slide. So how do we do it? So we're a marketplace. So what we do is we onboard farmers into a blockchain-based platform and connect them with buyers. So when we do that, we create a peer-to-peer marketplace, which means the farmers will be visible on the supply chain, which is traditionally the contrary, because mostly the middlemans buy off of the farmers and they engage with international market. But now what we do is we onboard the farmers, we support them to basically have the right skills, the right licenses, so that they can engage with international market and with the end consumer as well. And that actually creates a streamlined marketplace so that the farmers can promote themselves and sell the product to the appropriate buyer. Of course, it's a very simple way of explaining it, but there is a lot of sophistication that goes through the process because, number one, the farmer is not accustomed to technologies. So we have a backing system where we support them in terms of technology awareness and then also engaging them into the technology space as well. And then the other thing is it's all about product because technology is a facilitation, but the product has to be good. So and the product aspect. So we support them through training. And for the training aspect, we'll talk about later on in the VR what we do. So we use VR and AR as well to broadcast the trainings across remote sites where they can actually engage in through different means to learn about the products as well and how to do proper harvesting and proper processing so that they can be in line with international standards. So in a nutshell, it's a marketplace that offers an end-to-end supply chain service from quality management, onboarding a platform, marketing and promotion, commercial management, and logistic engagement. And ultimately, this will support the farmers to easily sell and trade their products internationally. If you go to the next slide. So before I touch the VR AR space, I touched a little bit on how we use blockchain. Blockchain is actually the game changer in our space. We have a different way of utilizing blockchain, how we aggregate communities through what we call a DAO concept. And then also we have what we call the token system. The token system, what it does is it encapsulates the value of the platform and give the farmers when they join our platform a sense of ownership and share. So if the farmers deliver good products and if the platform actually performs well in terms of transaction, the token value goes up, which means also the farmer can actually benefit from the token value. They can actually cash out at any time they want, or they can actually keep the token with them and then continue through the journey. So the blockchain aspect is very important in terms of bringing transparency, building communities, and then also having or giving the farmer a sense of ownership. That's one of the major aspect. But the VR and AR aspect is also the most important in this space because it gives an experience for a community that may not know coffee. For example, if you go to the consumer side, a lot of people don't know how coffee is harvested and processed. So it's just a lot of effort. So for people to appreciate the coffee they drink, and then also to incentivize the farmer, we use a VR space to educate how coffee is basically harvested and processed to get into their cup, which is a very long journey. One cup of actually 32 from 1 kilogram of coffee, there is 32 cups of coffee that gets out of it. So if a Starbucks buys 1 kg of coffee, they basically get 32 cup out of it, which is basically massive. But for the farmer to produce the 1 kg, it's a lot of effort and it's a lot of cost. And it's a lot of due diligence in terms of getting the coffee out into the market. Coffee is a very sensitive commodity. If you go to a coffee site with a perfume, the coffee can easily absorb the odor of the surrounding. So there is a lot of caution that needs to go through it, which basically the farmers absorb. But at the end of the day, the farmer doesn't get incentivized. So we use the technology in two areas. From the consumer point of view, to educate the consumers and for the consumer to have a level of empathy on the production so that we can enforce a fairer trade and then also get the consumer to engage and incentivize the farmers. From the farmer point of view, for the farmer to be aware of the consumer demand, because even if they produce the green bean coffee, by the time it gets into the consumer side, there is also a level of production or roasting mechanisms, blending mechanisms that needs to go through. For that, the quality is very important, which basically the farmers needs to be aware. So we basically showcase the farmers on the processing aspect or the consumption and the processing aspect of the coffee so that they know how to produce the coffee well. So these are the two areas.
This might
The
be a
two
wrap up here in another minute or so here, if you don't mind,
Sure.
Kume. Thank you.
No problem. So then maybe I'll go to the video to show them a little bit on how we use on the consumer side. So Tom, if you can play the video a little bit in terms of how we use virtual museums to, yeah, to explain, and then I'll close from that.
Sounds great. Excuse me, I think I'm going to have to ask the wrap on that one. But we will share that MP4 video here to everybody here in the chat. And Matt, if you want to go back to, we'll have time for questions after this too. So very exciting. Thank you so much, Kume. And we'll have some questions after other speakers wrap up. Yeah, powerful work.
All right. Thank you, Caroline and Kume. Up next, we have Andrew Brokaw from CNH. Andrew, if you want to make your way up here and grab a microphone. Andrew Brokaw is the manager of the Virtual and Augmented Reality Department at CNH, which coordinates all XR work in support of product development, as well as consults with projects for marketing, sales, and training. Within his team are multiple dedicated VR labs to help with activities such as performing engineering design reviews, ergonomic analysis, manufacturing simulations, and virtual prototyping. Take it away, Andrew.
Thank you, Matt. I think I have a video at the front, but I'll just speak over it if you just want to kind of go through that.
Okay, I'll try to mute it.
Oh yeah, I thought, oh yeah, we're gonna mute it and I can speak over it. Okay, if it plays the audio, it's fine. It's got good audio too. Okay, thank you for the introduction. Yeah, so my team, we develop virtual and augmented reality simulations that support mainly our product development of our agriculture and construction machines. But I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about our efforts in order to promote XR usage among our dealers, customers, how it influences the agriculture market, and how the agriculture market in general works. The video here is going to show a little bit about the history of the company. As you see, we started a long time ago. We've been in this industry for over 150 years, building different types of machines. I mean, all sorts of agriculture machines. If you think tractors, combines, sprayers, planters, tillage equipment, all of those. We also do construction machines as well, but this is all about agriculture machines. So we've been in the industry for a very, very long time. Usually people know the company better by our brand names. So CNH is the parent company. The brand names for us are Case IH Agriculture and New Holland Agriculture. So those are usually more recognizable. I tend to describe it as if you see a red tractor or a blue tractor, those are ours. Green tractors are the bad ones. We don't like those ones. So that's usually how we define it as. Also, if you see a yellow combine, those are also ours. So red and yellow combines, red and blue tractors. If you think that, those are ours. So this shows a lot of kind of where we've been going up till today. So this kind of tees off what I'm going to talk about a little bit about the industry in general and kind of what our priorities are going forward in supplying equipment and services to the end users, to the farmers for usage on their farms and for usage in their environment. So this is kind of showing us what we've done and where we're going, and I'll talk a little bit more about sort of the future of where we're going as well. So I think it should be just about done. Yeah, we can skip out of it. That's fine. Okay, you can go to next. Oh, I have one over there. Okay, skip that. It's not important. It's just the company. So yeah, as I said, usually the company is better known by our brand names. As I mentioned, Case IH and New Holland are the two primary ones, but we also have other ones like Steyr and Raven, Flexicoil, Miller. Those are kind of our major ag brands, and some of them are in certain areas, like Steyr is mainly in Austria, but Case and New Holland are kind of worldwide, and like you tend to see them more in certain areas. Like Case IH, you'll see more in the US, New Holland, you'll see more in Europe, but we sell them worldwide. So you can skip to the next. I mean, as a company, a very large company, consolidated revenue of like almost 25 billion. We have a lot of different R&D centers. I work here in Chicago. We have a new office in Oak Brook. Most of this week I'll spend building our new VR lab there, so setting that up. We have an office here. We have VR labs in multiple different locations. We have 6 of them right now at various locations around the world, and different ones of our R&D centers. So go to the next. And this just shows that our company is mostly devoted to agriculture machines, but we do some construction as well. As you see, we kind of have more, it's like 74% of kind of our revenue and our efforts are going towards these agriculture machines and putting those to the market. So go. And then these are some of the strategic priorities. These are very top level. I'll talk more in detail about what they are, but very top level, kind of what we're trying to do as a company in terms of technology leadership, in terms of like brand dealer strength, things like that. One of the things we're really focusing on is some of the new technologies that provide productivity enhancements to our farmers. Things like precision ag technology, navigation technology, autonomous technology, and then alternative fuels. Alternative fuels, that being kind of battery electric hybrids or battery electric machines, or liquefied natural gas, compressed natural gas, things like that, and different ways to power our machines in a sustainable way, but also provide benefit to our customers. Go to the next. Yeah, we can go. I don't know. This just talks about our brands. Case IH is the one you'll mainly see in the US. Heavy tractors and combines, things like that. Mostly sells to the big corporate farms. We sell very heavily to kind of the large farms. That's what Case IH focuses on. The next brand shown on the next page is New Holland. They also have the very large machines, but they also have very small specialty machines. They sell to individual farmers that have maybe small farms, not the big corporate farms. So they have much more specialized equipment. They do things like grape harvesters and things like that aren't sold through the Case IH brand. Go next. Steyr and Raven. Steyr, like I said, is an agriculture brand mainly in Austria, known for very precision technology, very small brand. And Raven is more of the precision technology part of the company, doing the GPS and automated systems and the guidance for the machines. Okay, go on. Skip those. Those are very small brands that do individual things. I want to talk a little bit about the ag industry in general, just to give you a background of kind of how this works, of what our industry is building towards. So, in the U.S., the main crop that's grown in the U.S. is corn by a fair bit. Corn and soybeans are the top two. That's over half of all agriculture within the United States. In the area we're in right now, I think Illinois as a state is second in corn and first in soybeans throughout all the nation. The story was always like, if you took Illinois, Iowa, and Nebraska and took their corn production and just made them their own country, they would still be the largest corn producing country in the world. So a lot of corn out of the area. A lot of you may know that if you've driven 50 miles from Chicago, all corn. So that's showing here that the corn is kind of the primary crop. I'm going to talk just briefly about kind of the corn industry. So if you go to the next one, and what it takes to grow a corn crop. So the U.S., we produce in general over 30% of the overall world's corn crop. And there's over 40,000 farms in the U.S. that grow corn. The planting cycle runs from March, somewhere late March, and then harvesting all the way in September and November. So it's most of the year, and then the rest of that year is planning for the next year. That's what farmers do. They're They plant in March, hope for the best, and then harvest it in September, November, and start for the next year. There's a lot of different equipment that are used to do this. So when you think farmers, you think tractors, maybe think combines, but there's a lot of other equipment beyond that. There's tillage equipment, things that are pulled behind the tractor, things that till up the soil and make the soil ready for planting. There's planters, which are big, gigantic, very long pieces of equipment that plant seeds one at a time in equal spacing that are also run off the tractors. There is sprayers, things like that spray fertilizer onto the corn so it grows better, gets rid of pests for pesticides, things like that. And then there's obviously the combines and beyond that, then there's got balers and things like that roll up all the extra chaff and turn it into hay and all that. So there's a lot of different machines that go into this, and these machines can be very expensive. I mean, if you think of one of our combines is probably close to $1 million to buy. So if you think of how much investment farmers have to have in order to go into this industry, there's a lot of capital up front that goes to it. But it could be, I mean, they can make it back in terms of in terms of the sale of their grain, because the grain prices drive pretty much our entire industry. When grain prices are low, one more minute? Yeah. Okay, skip and go to the next. We'll just skip over the corn stuff then. You can skip over that too. Yeah, electrification, alternative fuels I talked about. So battery electric hybrids are very much a big one coming up. And then liquefied natural gas, compressed natural gas. I'm telling you all this to say that the team that I have is devoted towards making prototypes of these machines so that we can produce them for our customers. You can go to the next, skip that one, and that one, and that one. We'll just go to the autonomous things. So go to the next. The next one is precision ag. This is one of the most important things coming up. Planting has to be very precise in terms of how you plant. You don't want to overrun rows and you want to overlap and things like that. So getting that precision is very important, and some of that goes towards autonomous vehicles. So if you think of the autonomous cars that people are talking about, our machines have been driving themselves for 30 years, and we're only getting better at that. So the idea is not to take the farmer out, but let the machines do all the harvesting in the field while the farmer manages. And that's kind of the idea, and that's what we're trying to work towards. And then I have a lot of VR demonstrations over there, so come over afterwards and different demonstrations on how you do maintenance, sit in the vehicle, work with different machines. So come over and test those out. Thank you.
Thank you. Don't go anywhere. You can just grab a seat.
Okay, I'll just grab some.
And Laurent can come back up. All right. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Laurent. I've been warned I need to talk slower, so I'm going to try and talk a little bit slower. I do tend to talk very fast. But let me talk briefly about how Q&A works, because we have audiences potentially in 3 different spots. We have the live audience here at 1871 in person. We have the virtual audience in Frame. And then we also are live streaming to Augmented World Expo. And Tom is monitoring the chat, and they can ask questions from there as well. So the way Q&A will work is, if you would like to ask a question, please raise your hand. In the virtual space, there is a raise hand function. Raise it and keep it up, and we will try to get to you in the order in which questions are asked. Ultimately, we will also prioritize people who haven't already asked a question. But Andrew is walking around with the microphone. He will need to, I'll basically be directing him on who to go to, and he'll hand you the microphone. You can ask your question. Please hand it back to him after that. And that's the way that will work. Caroline will tell people to unmute themselves in the virtual space. And Tom, if you've got a question, Tom will raise his hand and I'll direct Andrew with the microphone over to Tom. But with that, who's got the first question? Anybody? I saw Caroline come up with one during Kume's presentation, so she's welcome to ask that if she would like.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Matt. So I wanted to hear a little bit about Kume, if you could tell me because you're doing education with farmers in Ethiopia using some of these technologies or multitudes of technologies. So you talked about creating sites where you are doing sharing of how you manage the quality or other things around coffee making. Could you share a little bit about that?
Thank you very much. So the way you find, or the way how farmers
Do you
are
have
placed.
your megaphone thingy on? I should have asked that question. So you're a
Yeah,
little bit
it's
louder.
on.
Excellent. Excellent.
Okay. So if in Ethiopia, farmers are scattered across different areas. They're not clustered, so the way you reach the farmers may not be easy and for them to travel around. So what we have is what we call we select certain farmers' houses for farmers to come together and have a laptop or a video where they can actually we have a VR space for them, where they can actually see through a laptop means or a video cam, and then we basically do the education through that platform. But individually, they may not have the capacity to basically look at or immerse into a VR space. But what we do is we use different handsets or laptops for them to look at all this like VR spaces, to basically have a first-hand feel of what we call quality products, for example, and then also for them to understand how their green bean coffee is being processed and then consumed, so that for them they can have that takeaway and then produce and harvest and process it on their side as well. So we use a different mechanism, first of all, to consolidate the farmers in certain locations, and then also for them to have access to all this equipment so that they can actually use the right technologies for them to have a better understanding of basically what's expected of them. And this is how we operate.
And I think it's great because I think for all of these technologies, we have to think about how is the best mechanism where people are going to be able to adopt and use. And a lot of times you're providing a gateway, but just to know that you can try a bunch of different kinds of technologies in very rural, remote spaces is incredible. That's great.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Back to you, Matt.
I'm actually going to kind of add on that a little bit. And I'm going to ask, so you obviously talked about using the technology in rural spaces where it might be a little bit more difficult to implement. I'm going to throw this to Laurent and Mimbis, because you've got, over, I want to say 30 immersive learning solutions, and a lot of them are targeted at things like agriculture and food processing, which again, in the US are not necessarily known to be the most advanced industries that are tech forward and constantly adopting new technology. So, I would say, essentially, how are you making sure that these technologies are accessible and effective for those industries that are, again, not necessarily fast adopters?
Yeah, that's a good question about PD, professional development for the people that are in charge of that. So mainly, we need to find people like ambassadors that will be our main entrance and that will be educated to be efficient. And it goes usually through the trainer and the instructors. They need to be upskilled. There's a big change for them in the way they're teaching, because you're teaching with VR completely differently. It's a revolution for them to teach in a way they can make people practice from the beginning. They can touch people remotely. So it can be, as you said, people that are remote, far away. But again, the technology is quite complicated for those people. So they need to be educated. It has to be simple. Today, even if it looks simpler, it's too complicated yet for people that are far away from the technology, but it's improving. And then in the last step is done by the teaching, educating the teacher, educating the user in using it the best way. So PD, professional development of the teacher, is essential to make that happen. But that we do, like I have an example in Europe where they're using VR wallet, VR headset, and they go remotely. And it works also in Africa. We did that in Congo and in Kenya. Remotely, so they go with a car, with a truck in a very remote place, and they're teaching kids there.
I'm going to throw the same question at you a little bit, Andrew, because again, I know CNH is doing a little bit of like customer engagement, and obviously, by definition, agriculture is very widely distributed. It's not like they're all just coming to central locations, or are you kind of going to meet them where they are? Or are they more coming to you and your centers, your innovation centers?
Sure, yeah. I mean, it is kind of a split between those two. I will say, well, you say PD, I think product development, because that's the side I come from. For the PD side, the product development side, usually when we do those types of the work in VR, they come to us because we have more capabilities within the labs to put someone to a virtual machine, things like that. But when we're trying to use VR and AR for more of a training or sales and technical sales and marketing type application, you really have to go to where the people are. Frequently we'll start that at going to our dealers. So I mean, we have dealers similar to like car dealerships. We have dealerships for our machines. We will give them the capabilities to do a VR or AR experience, and the dealers are really the first point of contact for all the people on the farms. So the farmers, they go to their dealers. The farmers are much more closer to their dealerships than car people with cars are to your dealerships, because farmers go to their dealerships on a weekly basis, talking about things, asking about equipment, getting repairs, getting new commodity or new consumables to go with their machines. So they're very, very close to their dealers. So we kind of spread it to the dealership level, and that allows the farmers who come in there on a regular basis to then use the technology and to get the demonstrations rather than having to come to a central location. They'll go to their local dealership. So that's kind of how we try to spread it around more remotely.
Real quick, show of hands. Who in the room is in the foods industry? 1, 2. Got a few. Who in the room is in the tech industry? All right, it's helpful. Again, it's helpful for us to know just kind of like who we get and how to tailor some of the answers a little bit. I can't see, Caroline, do you have any virtual questions?
I don't quite yet. No.
Okay. Tom, anything from stream? Nothing at the moment. All right, cool. Anyone in the room? Come on. You guys know everything about virtual reality and augmented reality and agriculture. Awesome. I'll throw this one out to all three of you then, basically. So looking forward, how do you see immersive technology kind of continuing to shape, like the development of the machinery and the advancements in the industry as a whole?
I mean, for myself, some of the things we're looking at going forward are to use immersive technology on the actual vehicles. So right now it's more of a demonstration piece, things like that, but we're looking at doing things like augmented reality heads-up displays on the vehicles so that it gives more information to farmers that they wouldn't already have. Because if you sat in a tractor, or if you want to sit in a virtual one later, you'll notice there are a lot of monitors in there. There's a lot of information being thrown at these farmers. More information than you could just, if you had to just have all the information you wanted to, you'd have like 100 displays in there. It'd be yield up here, there'd be the cluster information over here, there'd be information GPS over here, there'd be machine configuration settings up here. So having that many physical monitors in a vehicle is unreasonable. You can't design it that way. But you do an augmented reality setup where you have a virtual heads-up display that you can put wherever you want, and you can customize with the information you need, and it doesn't obstruct the normal operation of the cab or things like that. So providing that ability for them to get that data and information in the way they want to, on location where they want to, I see as something that for us, I mean, for my industry, is one of the big things going forward, I think.
So literally almost putting like a video game customizable heads-up display on the screen.
Exactly.
Fun.
It's not unreasonable.
Go ahead, Laurent.
Yeah. I think unlike Andrew, unlike you, I'm not an expert in agriculture. I'm more generalist. But what I see in the food industry today, that's an interesting side for us, because initially VR XR for trades was starting with big industry like metal industry, this kind of things, more like manufacturing, let's say. And then now it's moved more and more to the food industry. We have a lot of requests, and it goes from, it's so wide because it goes from very manual things, like what Kume was mentioning, creating coffee. It's really hands-on things, very manual, to very automated and more digitalized solution, what you have here in the US. And in between, you have a wide range of solution. Today, we started a project where they want to teach farmers and people in the food industry to understand what is the new version of the job because of the digital solution that comes in the job. So it's also training people in evolving country, emerging country, to improve the quality of the production, to be sustainable, efficient, to get better money, to live better and all that things. And on the other side, to teach kids in places, very advanced place, what is the job of the future? What would means to be a farmer? Because it's no more just planting seeds. It's really understanding all the data you have around you and proceed this data in a proper way. So what action will you do? And that is the question of the future, because you need not only to understand what is it about the food processing, but how it will change, because the job is not the same and the teacher cannot align that fast. So digital solution like XR is a way to, run faster than the evolution.
Kume?
Yeah, so from my side, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
So from my side is basically to bring the two sides of the market very close through the XR mechanisms, and then also drive sustainabilities. So if you look at, for example, today, anyone that drinks coffee, they don't know how the coffee is getting processed. They don't know the pinpoints. Even if now the consumer is more driven around sustainability, even the purchasing decision is driven by sustainability. How would a consumer would know what sustainability means? And then how do basically they incentivize also the production system is basically where I see XR will bring a bigger value, because then that will give them an exposure, that will give them a better understanding of how their food is processed from farm to cup, and then how sustainable it is. And then through that, they can actually make a better decision from the consumer side. From the farmer side, it's also better understanding of the consumer side to produce better quality, and then bringing all that together into all the supply chain actors together into the XR space would bring a better value, better collaboration, and then also better understanding to streamline the supply chain, drive price, drive quality, drive sustainability. And this is where I see the future of the XR into the coffee sector.
Thank you.
I want to dovetail on just that one last comment that Kume made, and that is that it also is bringing our world closer together, right? Because that's one of the beautiful things about XR is that you can come to a platform like this and connect with, and not only be with, but actually co-create with people from around the globe in new ways. So I think that that's such a great statement to be made about how, and I'm sure in the corn industry or in the meat industry, there's just a lot that the consumers are curious about and want to know about. So yeah, good point.
Show of hands in the room. How many of you have been to a coffee farm? Wow, 3, which is actually more than I expected. How many of you, show of hands, how many of you think that the Ethiopian coffee farmers have been to a Starbucks? Nobody. 1, and we got 1 who's right up there just for the fun of it. All right, excellent. Go ahead. We have a live question in the room.
All right, my question is about, I guess, the transition from learning all these things in a VR space to actually doing them in a physical space. And has there, I guess, over time, has that been has that been a shrinking gap, or how does that handle processing a chicken in VR versus in real life having the different resistances and all that? Is that something that's getting taken into account too with haptics, or is that something that's being seen and dealt with?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a question we had since the beginning. When we started with welding, that was the same question already. So it's not the same material, but it's the same question. The skill, it goes with the quality of VR. So the quality of VR, when we're talking with learning, it has to be XR, it has to be immersive learning. And you have immersive in the word, but you have learning. So the learning content of what you will produce is really the paramount key question you need to focus on. You can have the best video game in the world, it will not be a teaching tool. So when we're addressing a trade like cutting chicken, of course, we know that we will not exactly be able to reproduce the feeling of the chicken and all that thing, of course. But what is the problem? Problem is that today you have a chain. You need to cut as fast as possible, focus on some visual aspect, on some shape on the animal, and be efficient in cutting food. It's a matter of seconds, The company we're working in Scotland that providing food and chicken to KFC, they cutting 10.5 million chicken per week. and it's all made by hands. So it has to be efficient. It's not good. Well, I'm agree. If we're talking about sustainability, green food, and all that things, we're not talking about that. All right, but agree. But anyway, there's people living with that. It's their business. They have a job. They're surviving thanks to that. So the problem is if they're not cutting well, they will get hurt. Of course, the people that getting money, they don't want the resource to get hurt, but we don't want to have the human being destroyed by that. So the thing is that you focus on some visual cue and you try to tell them what will happen if you see that. And that's what we're working on. We're working on your brain, on your eyes, try to make you understand the principle of the work. And the real work, the pain, the density, all that things, you will get it because it's things you will get beside the process that you learn in XR. That's how we're working.
Sorry, give me a second. Someone's apparently trying to get in the front door and I'm trying to unlock it for them. There we go. Looks like it worked.
I mean, just to quickly jump on that. I mean, one of the things I've noticed, because we do training scenarios as well for like service technicians and how to service vehicles and things like that. And I have noticed that there are people that are sort of naturally resistant to using VR or AR. Sometimes that's along an age divide, things like that. People are younger, tend to be more willing to jump into it and more responsive to it. And it's kind of like if you treat it as if it's actually a physical, an actual real experience, you'll get more out of it. So if you kind of, I mean, the best way I say is like lose yourself in the immersive part of it. You'll get more out of it because then it becomes an actual memory to you. It's kind of like how it goes into your memory. I mean, for example, like I've been in some of our immersive environments where I forget that I'm just sitting in an office chair. I actually think I'm in a combine. I try to put my hand down and to stand up, and I put my hand right through nothing because I'm trying to brace myself on the seat next to me. It's the combine seat next to me. So it's like it's allowing yourself to sort of almost believe the immersive experience is real and not being resistant to it, then it becomes just like any one of your other memories, like an exact training. And that's kind of how I see it. And certain people are more resistant, certain people accept that. So it's hard.
All right. Caroline?
I know maybe Matt wants to share a little bit more of this, but I have to check on the episode that we had, but we have had some haptics companies come in, and I've done some demos at AWE actually with gloves, and so that technology is advancing really, really quickly. But as I think it's still a ways to go before we can have it be so accessible and inclusive that it will be adapted into the companies like Lawrence and Kume and others, but the feelings and the things that happen in your brain, I think there's just so much more advancement in that field, and it's completely fascinating. And if you ever get the chance, it's really, really fun to try on those gloves because it kind of flips you out. I had a spider crawl over my fingers and it felt just like a spider. It was crazy.
I'll go with when I put my hand in a virtual glove over the flame and I was like, how is this thing not actually burning my hand? Like it felt like it was burning. That's it. I know we have a question in the room. I'll get to that in just a second. One of the things, and again, I apologize if you guys covered this. I was trying to get somebody in the front door with my little gadget on the phone here. But, the question between training and learning that you brought up, immersive training, one of the really powerful things about it is you can do repetition over and over and over. You can do things very quickly, very cheaply. It doesn't require any materials. It doesn't necessarily require transporting equipment to people or people to equipment. So when you start to think about like, why is this valuable? The one I talk about all the time is welding. It's like welding, aside from actually getting that muscle memory, which you're not really going to get other than touching an actual torch to metal, but you can learn how to do the setup. You can learn how to do all the safety procedures. You can learn how to position yourself and position the torch so that you are in a position to actually do the welding that you need to do correctly. And you can learn all that and practice all that over and over and over again without ever actually requiring any materials, so that by the time that you get to the point of actually touching the torch to metal, you've been through it 100 times. And you don't have to essentially waste a lot of time or an instructor's time or transportation just to get to that point where you're actually ready to do the actual work. And so when you start to apply that to almost any other industry or anything else that requires materials or equipment or frankly a trainer, that's where you start to see the real value in the learning.
And I mean, just to add to that, also in a safer environment, because some of the things you need to do are inherently unsafe for the untrained. So you're training in a safe environment before putting them into the more dangerous environment.
I had a question.
Yeah, you guys touched on this about the adoption. So did you find that the end users quick to adopt, or are they pretty hesitant? And what are the risks for AR and VR?
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
Yeah, is the worker or employee or the farmer, like they're really eager to adopt these virtual reality, augmented reality tools? Or do they is there like a
Resistance
to it? Yeah.
Yeah, well, that comes to the question, of the integration of the technology. Yeah, it's, of course, there's a resistance. So, and the thing is that you need to focus on that. I mean, you need to deal with that and have a plan to handle that before creating anything, and thinking about that when you're creating it as that things. Today, in the process of integrating XR into education, the first step is planning it. And most of the time, this step is forgotten. Most of the time, you get a funding, you get a request, and they just ask you, "Can you create that?" And the people are the techies. They just do exactly. You ask me, "Can you create this meeting?" I will try to replicate any chair, any people, without thinking what is the needs behind, what is the skill that is mandatory. Can I separate the skills and work them separately to make it efficient? So the planning steps. And without thinking about the world, I mean, if you are with Kume in Ethiopia, maybe you don't have the same infrastructure than here in Chicago. So you need to think what you need to do, where you're doing it, what is the target audience, and based on that, you need to build up a strategy to get access to them. So that's how it works. And evaluate the return on investment afterwards by using proper KPI. So there's, solution today that works. We know that it works. Every time it works. But if the steps are not followed in a proper way, we are also sure that it will not work.
I mean,
Yeah, I completely agree as well. Localization is the most important aspect, whatever technology that you have, to bring it down into basically a community that is not really advanced. It takes a lot of steps: implementation plan, localization, from language up to how the farmer can actually engage with the tech as well. So there has to be a strategy that needs to be in place to drive the adoption. Otherwise, it's not just using it from off the shelf.
yeah, I mean, I was going to say, similar to that, I mean, it's making sure they're trying to find ways to make them comfortable in the environment in order to use the technology. I mean, there are many times people are resistant to put on a headset because I think they'll look dumb or something. So you have to make them comfortable in order to use the technology. And some of that is really defining knowing your audience, essentially, designing the solution to fit the audience you're going to. If you know the audience is going to be somewhat more resistant to it, you can design it in certain ways that will make them more comfortable, that they don't have to worry about flailing their arms or in a headset or something like that. So you try to design it towards an audience, knowing ahead of time that they may not be comfortable with it and going forward.
I don't know. We have a question way in the back of the room.
All right. For the questions, just trying to think. Especially for training, because it definitely sounds like you did a lot. How VR can be used for like training of like different machines, like a combine or a plow, or things like that. How about for training for when, like, in different situations, maybe depending, it's like here in the Midwest versus out in like Southeast Asia or something like that, where it's 100 degrees all year round. Just kind of how you would deal with different environments and different things that can happen with your crops, with the weather and everything else.
Scenario training.
Well, it's also what Kume mentioned about localization. So depending on what you're addressing. You need to have something that either is able to cope with different environments. So from the beginning, you had some option in the content that align with the different scenario. And that's an important point, by the way. We used to create content that are global, so it has to work in different country everywhere. So it's not only how do you make it work technically, but it's the content that has to be aligned with Africa, with Asia, with Europe, with America. So you need to think about that when you're creating it, by having some option, by having some way to configure and set up the content so it fits the local needs. But yeah, that's something that is not that easy to do in some cases, but that's something that needs to be taken into account if you want to have a solution that fits with everybody.
And Matt, I wanted to ask, it's okay, I want to ask a question to Kume. We were talking earlier about the management of quality of the coffee and farmers. And that's another, you talked about some phases that you had used in this project. Can you speak a little bit about the policies that you've learned about and how government is involved in the farming industry in Ethiopia? Because I think it's very different than it is here in this country. And I think it really speaks to the importance of being able to educate the policymakers about the work that you're doing. Can you speak about that?
Yeah, so just to touch upon the different phases. So when we started the project initially, I came with the mindset of like, I'm going to get a marketplace into the platform, onboard them, connect them with the buyer. And I thought it was as simple as that. But then again, there is a technology limitation. There is also infrastructure limitations. There is also what we call the product know-how limitation, because the farmer and the consumer were not communicating, so each did not understand the demand or the supply requirements. So for us, we had to actually leave the tech aspect and immerse ourselves getting a good product, because what matters at the end of the day is a good coffee, a quality coffee, beyond the technology. Technology is just a facilitator. So then later on, once we basically helped the farmer in creating a good product, then we had to bring it on board or bring the technology to do the facilitation. So those are like the different stages that we went through. But coffee in Ethiopia is the most treasured commodity, and it's the number one foreign currency generator. So it's a very protected sector. So you're not allowed to even dump a single bean on the street, because it's just everything is monitored and controlled. So which means if a commodity is controlled, the farmers are also under the eyes of the government. And agriculture by its nature is tied with a public sector. It hasn't been liberalized or privatized a lot. So you get to find a lot of the work, quote unquote, is assumed to be done by the government, which government is known to be inefficient as well, because they're more policymakers than bringing different innovations. So for us, when we came to the sector to access the farmer itself, it was a challenge, because we had to go through a different bureaucracy systems to basically talk to a group of farmers, because farmers as a commodity, they're seen also a commodity of the government. So when you bring technology or when you bring a new concept, since the environment is not acceptable, so you have to go through educating the government entity first in terms of the change that you bring in, the outcomes, and then also how it would affect the policymakers. Because for us, when we brought even the marketplace, the peer-to-peer, we're killing or we're transforming the middlemen, because there were multiple middlemen across from a farm to an export sector. So you're thinking about minimum six supply chain actors across. So removing those from 4 to 6 actors from the sector will also impact jobs, will disrupt the supply chain, and it made it more political as well. So getting the concept across the government, getting the buy-in, and then from that taking it and also doing the implementation basically is the bigger job than actually the tech itself. So a lot of people are afraid of like what the tech is gonna do and how it's gonna kill quote unquote a job, because the government has to do as equal job to basically create more jobs or transform the workforce for the new technologies that will be coming in. Because just to give an example, we have more than 10,000 what we call DAs. So they are basically agriculture assistant communities that are paid by the government. So when we bring this immersive technologies to the community, we're killing all these remote agents because they're no longer needed, because we can educate the farmers from the central place.
Wow.
But yeah,
So I love
that's-
that. I love that connection to the education. And I wonder really ultimately, we are making strides with, there's a lot more strides out in the education space. It's been phenomenal for the use of AR and VR. So I would be, I just think it calls so strongly, right? Because if policymakers were able to visualize that industry and understand it more, that might also help your education process. Thank you. That's a really interesting point. Back to you, Matt.
Yeah, we got one more live question in the room, and then I think we're going to do our closing statements. So go ahead.
Oh, sure. Thanks for letting me have the last question. I'm just curious, with these tools, like for the end user, what are their options for changing their augmented reality? Like, because if you were to practice with like one knife in VR, and then you get handed like a very different one in reality, you'd be like, oh, I got to go back to my training room. Otherwise, you're almost like at a disadvantage, right? Where like you got used to one thing and you did heavy repetition with it, and then you got handed a different physical object. So it's like some customization by the end user seems like it would have to be built in within range, right? And I'm curious, sort of like, how do you give people those options?
That's exactly what you said. Customization has to be done in a certain range. So the question is, again, is it something mandatory, like if you don't do that, it doesn't fit at all? Or is it something like, it can be also seen as an advantage? Let's say you're training someone to become a skilled sharpening chicken, whatever. Someone that will spend his time cutting, but the knife may change because it will work from place to place and will not use the same knife. If you look at a chef, for instance, if you look at the different knife they all have different use. Way of using them is different also. So the nice thing of VR is that you can change from a knife to another in a second. And then the way you're using it is different, but you need to adapt by looking at the shape, by understanding what you're doing. So the advantage is not to focus, and that's one part of the skills. You should not focus on the exact shape or type of the tool provided by the industry player. For instance, if you want to teach someone to adapt and to be able to find a job, even if he's fired from this industry player. So that's why we're addressing it. 90% of our target today is school, is technical school, vocational college, and all that things, because we think today, and it's not against the industry player, but you have to focus on production. Training is just, you did it because you have to, because nobody can do it in your place because it's too far away. My topic is that we need to empower the training center to be the place where the training is done and to answer the needs of the industry. So the industry can focus on setting up the small gap between a generic operator and their dedicated task players. But today the tools, the quality of the tools is not higher enough, and it speaks. I mean, it's in a way it goes on the setup and the way it can be adapted to different type of use. And it's mandatory to have, like when we're welding, you need to be able to weld different objects, you need to be able to weld on different process on the same software. To create someone that is open enough. So when he will goes to Lincoln Electric, when he will go to those places, he's able to align with the methods in a day or in fast. That's the things we need to focus on today. We need to empower the training center to do what they need to do. Today, in any country, most of the industry players, they don't go to the training center because they know that the quality of the people that get out of this training center is not good enough. So they're creating their own academy. And I don't think it's a good way to proceed.
All right, so we're going to get to our closing remarks. Here's how this is going to work, and this is frankly me giving the panelists a few minutes and a few moments to think about what they want their closing remark to be. So each panelist will get about 20 seconds to just kind of give a closing statement of anything they really want to talk about, either in the industry or their space, or their solutions or their company. It's up to them. They get 20 seconds to pretty much cover what they want. Caroline will then give her closing remarks. I'll give some quick closing remarks on my side. Then we'll go into some housekeeping and just talk about next events and other things and what's going on after, because this is not the end of the event. This is the end of the stage presentation. We're getting back to demonstrations. We have food and drinks here. Caroline will be in the virtual space, and obviously we would like some of you guys to go visit her in the virtual space if you haven't tried that yet, because you can actually throw on a headset and be in VR with her. But with that, I will call them in a random order. I'm going to actually reverse the order that you presented. So Andrew, you're up first. Go.
Sure. I mean, one of the things I always like to state is that people think of the agriculture industry as being sort of a dumb industry. It's big, heavy equipment. It's like they're not high tech. They're just big pieces of iron. But that's really the furthest thing from the truth. I mean, honestly, our machines have more computing power in them, more sensors on them than most vehicles, than most any vehicle. They've been able to drive themselves for a long time, and I mean, you say like agriculture is slow to adopt, but honestly, on the agriculture machinery industry, we're adopting some of the higher technology things even before some of the automotives are. So I kind of think that it's good to know that that is being applied in this industry as well.
Kume?
Just to close, coffee is what everyone drinks. It would be interesting to basically explore, for me, the XR space and bringing into the coffee sector, and then also educating it. So if anyone is interested to involve and see what we do and also be part of it to bring change, because the XR space is a bit expensive as well to reach it to the farmer level, please feel free to reach out to me, and then I can showcase some of the work that we do and see how we can get you guys engaged.
Okay, Laurent?
Yeah, well, food is a key. Huh? If we don't have food, we're dying basically. So I think it's the question of the future. The kids need to be aware that there's a lot of jobs there. We need that people that creating food for us, because there's more and more people on Earth, and we need to feed all those people. And the solution goes through digital solution anywhere, and you cannot avoid it. So it's not a matter of will I go there, when should I go there, is I need to go there. So how to do that in the best way, efficient way, sustainable. So I think it's a key. I mean, we need to focus on that, because the future is, we need to survive and we need to get fed in a proper way. And so VR can help in making that happen in a proper way too.
Caroline?
I like all of the things people have said so far. I think one of the things that is so important in all of this is really about how are people going to understand and visualize how food is made, where it comes from, and give them more agency for making choices about food. And I think that the more we can bring those producers and consumers closer together, I really believe and have experienced this, that there's really never been a medium quite this diverse and this dynamic, and it just takes, as everyone has talked about, is education. So yeah, it's a fascinating topic. Thanks.
I was going to say, Laurent, you touched on a little bit the one thing I was going to say, which is if for those of you who are following the news, there were two really, like, aside from wars, which I'm going to stay away from, and politics, which I'm really going to stay away from. There were two major stories that took place over the last week. Number one is, for those of you who know that the longshoremen are on strike. Has everyone heard about this?
Yeah, I live in Maine, and the port in Maine actually is a stone's throw from Boston. And so that is very much a topic of our state and our region. Absolutely.
And along with that, we had Helene, which was the the hurricane that basically ran up the Appalachians and pretty much wiped out Asheville, North Carolina. The reason I'm bringing both of these up is because of how they relate to food and food transport. And it's one of those things that, like, when we talk about agriculture and food as an industry, you know, where a lot of times we're thinking, okay, agriculture, you think the farmer. You know, it's like, okay, there's, you know, the stereotypical picture you have in your head of a farmer. We don't really necessarily think about the $1 million machines that have more computing power than, you know, an automotive, essentially a self-driving car. And when we think about food, we think about the food that's in our refrigerator or the food that we're going to a restaurant to eat. And we don't necessarily think about the necessity of getting food to hundreds of thousands of people when there's no roads. Like, there's a lot that goes into the food industry besides just the food. There's the logistics of the transportation of it, the preparation of it, aside from just the cooking and the harvesting. And so it's interesting to think about all of these things and the aspects of where the immersive technology can actually plug in, because it plugs in at every step along the way, from the point of actual production to the point of distribution to the point of prep and delivery. Every piece of that can be transformed using immersive technology. It's just the thing I want to talk about, like when we talk about some of the industries that a lot of people think are kind of a little bit farther from adoption of immersive tech, they're really not, because it does affect all the way across the line. And for every job there's training. And frankly, that's the kind of the fastest way that most people are adopting immersive technology. All right, with that, you guys, thank you. You can leave the stage if you want, turn off the microphones and leave them there. A couple of housekeeping items. Let me get back to my slide deck and fast forward a few times. So this has been Next Evolution of Virtual Reality, Immersive Technology in Agriculture, Food, and Natural Resources. Really quick, I'm gonna ask everybody here to play a game with me. Raise your hand and keep it raised. Oh, I'm actually forcing y'all to do this, come on. And I can see you live, so it's not easy to get away with not doing this one. Okay, cool. We're going to play a game. So first of all, keep your hands raised if you find that this program was worth spending the time that you spent here tonight. Ooh, everybody, awesome. Please keep your hand raised if you think this program is worth $5. Everyone still. What about $10? I'm going to keep going up. Feel free, like seriously, this is your opinion. Do what you got to do. $20. Couple coming down. Okay, that's fine. Great.
We have a virtual one who's raising their hand too. Don't forget.
Unfortunately, I can't see the virtual. Tom can. All right, who here thinks that Back to the Future is the best movie ever? One person thinks Back to the Future is the best movie. I don't know if she heard me correctly. Okay, you guys can put your hands on. Thank you. The reason I do this, we don't like asking for money any more than anybody else does. But we're asking you to raise your hands because we kind of try to grab attention from the people and the sponsors because we want to keep this program running, frankly. All the money that we get from donations and sponsorships goes directly back into this meeting and making it essentially more enjoyable for you all, having things like food, having the ability to stream, having the equipment that is necessary for us to stream. We like to buy some snacks. We like to have food if we're able. We rarely have any money to go beyond that. We have not been able to do any additional advertising because we don't have the funds to do it. We're trying to streamline a lot of our technology and our routing, but frankly, we don't have the funds to get new technology. And so we get here early and we stay late in the hopes of keeping the event running, and we meet every week and talk about the topics that are pertinent. And so we're bringing this up again primarily because even if you are unable to make a donation, which is fine, we as we've said, this event is free. It will always be free. We are never going to require anybody to pay to come to this event. But if you can make a donation to support us, great. If you can't, or if you're unwilling to, you can definitely support us by sharing our messaging, by following our social media pages, getting it out there. We are working and trying to get corporate sponsorship for this, and the more that they see our messaging echoing, the more likely they are to actually make investments. And we really want to amplify this. You got to keep in mind, just prior to the pandemic, we were pulling approximately 125 people, anywhere between 75 and 125 people per event that we were hosting here. And that was because we had, at that time, grown it to the point of actually having a lot of sponsorship, and frankly, all that momentum kind of went away with the pandemic, and we're starting over again. And we've been kind of scratching our way past since. So again, thank you if you have made a donation to support us. If not, please, again, look at our posts, follow them, share them, like them, make comments if you can, because that actually drives a lot of traffic. And once again, thanks for being here, and please stick around, have a drink. If I didn't get a chance to meet you in person, I'd love to. We will have some more demonstrations. Real quick logistics. Next month is not going to be here at 1871. It's going to be at 2112. If you don't know where that is, feel free to talk to myself or Tom. We'll tell you. But we're going to be covering health and health science. next month. And then in December, we will be back here. It's going to be on the first Wednesday of November, first Wednesday of December, so the 6th and the 4th, respectively. And on December, we're going to be talking about, frankly, a really big industry in Chicago, which is transportation and logistics and distribution. Oddly enough, has a lot to do with the food industry. But with that, thank you very much. We hope you have a great night. We hope to see you stick around, have a drink, and grab a snack and try some more demonstrations. And hopefully we'll see you at the next event. I'm going to throw the donation slide up and leave it with that. And once again, thank you, Caroline and Kume. Caroline, we hope you're going to be hanging out in the virtual, and Kume as well if you can. Thank you again, by the way, Kume and Laurent. So Kume, it actually is 2 a.m. Laurent, it's
Yes.
virtually 2 a.m.
It's, yeah, 3 now. 4. Really
3
late.
or 4, right. So thank you very much, guys,
She
for
has
doing
to be up. Yeah.
It's almost
so she's gonna
4.
say goodnight. So I will be
It's
here,
almost-
everybody. Come and see
Excellent.
me. Talk to me.
Okay.
And in about
Okay,
2
bye
minutes,
guys. Thank
I'm
you.
going to mute the virtual room in the physical room, but we do have the mirror over there where you can actually get in and talk with them. So thanks again, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a great night. See you next month. Just letting you know, Caroline, you're muted in the room.
Okay, sounds good. Well, great that you all came, and feel free if you want to chat anything about AR, VR, immersive tech.